So the sketch builds on itself. Here's another. Hi, today I'd like to talk about a mortising system I've been using for a few months now. This involves loose tenon joinery, and it's a slot mortiser. So this began as a Jessem Corporation ZipSlot Mortise Mill, and I purchased this several years ago. Used it a few times, but I was not really satisfied with the results. The results were great, but it was sort of cumbersome to use. It's designed to sit on to be clamped or attached to the edge of a bench with a vacuum hose, and it functions with a power drill and its own unique drill bit. It's an end mill actually that works in conjunction with a bushing and a bearing bushing system, and the actual slot is created by moving the way along two rails with the drill in place. So it worked fine. I just found it cumbersome because I had to align the boards vertically in one case and horizontally in the other, and there was no support for the board. So after using it for a while, I sort of gave up on it, and it's been sitting on a shelf and gathering dust for a number of years now. So it's actually a very well engineered piece of machinery. This is the vacuum slot, 2.5-inch hose. There's all sorts of adjustments to create the actual slot. This is the width adjustment. This would orient the width of the slot. This is the actual offset on the edge of a board from top to bottom. These two adjustments, and they need to be parallel actually. And the other adjustment is a top plate. This actually holds the board either in this orientation or this orientation against the jig, the tool, and while you're actually driving the end mill with a power drill and going back and forth. Now there is a small technique to actually performing that correctly. The technique is actually to go very gently initially, and what I do is I actually drill through both ends first, or most of the way, and then maybe halfway, and then continue with removing waste between the two outside edges of the mortise. The loose tenons that work in conjunction with this, here I'll give you an example. These are 2-inch long, 1 1/4 inch wide, and 3/8-inch loose tenons. This is a fairly standard size, although you can get smaller 1/4 inch bushing and a 1/4 inch end mill drill, and the smaller tenons. So if I recall correctly, they come in 2 sizes, but this is probably a more general purpose size. And so I acquired 2 or 3 boxes of these in the process. So again, it's very well engineered. The parts are fairly rugged, and it works well. So to continue with the story, is I thought I've always wanted a horizontal slot mortiser. So I thought, why not mount it horizontally? I could use I had this rolling cart with lockable wheels, casters I should say, and I thought, why not mount it horizontally, and then I can use the surface of the rolling cart as a bearing surface for the pieces being drilled, for example, like so. So I could use this, and I've also created a support for it here, but I can use it in both orientations. I have a support for both orientations, and I found it much easier to use in this orientation horizontally rather than have it mounted vertically on a bench. So what I've done is I've permanently mounted it horizontally and accurately set the height of the jig or the tool with the surface of the rolling cart to prevent any distortion in the slots drilled. And I've gone ahead and set it all up, that one issue I had with it was because the original setup was vertical. Was vertical. The offset adjustment, which is actually the offset, I'm just giving you the offset in the actual board itself on an edge. So this would be the offset, the center line. This is the offset. So typically you create mortises at the center line, but you can offset them in one direction or the other. So this particular adjustment was easier to do in this orientation than the vertical orientation because the adjustments are right here, for example. So I just move this back and forth and use a reference or line to center or offset the mortise. Now, because it's mounted vertically, it's a little more difficult because the weight of the assembly itself would tend to pull it down, so it's hard to fine-tune the adjustment. So what I've done is I've created a fine-tuned setup using a threaded rod, a handle, and a couple of nuts, and a cradle for the actual for this part here. So I created a cradle for it, and I'll show you that in a second. But it works really well. I can raise and lower it. I'm not going to do it now because I've actually preset it for a particular size board. I'm going to be creating 2 slots in shortly. So once I've done with that, I'll show you how easy it is to raise and lower it. So it actually functions really well as a horizontal slot mortiser now. It's efficient, it's accurate, and with the vacuum system, there's absolutely no dust or shavings generated. It's all pulled into the system. So I'm very, very satisfied with it, and it's attached to my rolling cart. It's just a few inches on one side. So what I'll do next is I'll actually go through and give you a demonstration of how to create the slots for the loose tenons, and this would be a rail and style assembly. So I've already created one here. I've already created one here, just to give you an idea. This is how easy it is, and it locks really well. So it's, the end result is very similar to what you get with a domino today, although the domino did not exist at the time. But I can't really afford a domino system, and I had this already, so I actually had 2. I bought a second one on the used tool market since, because they've been discontinued actually. A few years ago they were discontinued, so there must be thousands out there available on a used tool market. So this is the end result. So I'll actually recreate this in these 2 boards, and I'll go through with that. So to do that, I'll remove this. So in order to do this, you need to clamp the boards down fairly securely, and I use this deep throat clamp, very deep throat clamp, to be able to do that. And so I've already marked the boards, and one of the markings is very simple. It's just center line. So this orients the slot at the center line of the edge of the board, although it can be offset. And this is the other marking is a distance from the end. So this is actually the beginning of the mortise, with allowing for 3/16, which would be half the diameter of the drill bit that I'm using. So these are the only 2 markings, and you can once I've marked these off on a board, I just orient this on the unit, and I center it through 2 crosshairs on the actual unit itself, and then clamp it down. So I'll do that now. And I'm using ear protection because it's quite noisy. Creating the mortise isn't noisy at all, but the vacuum system is. So I'll have to reduce that volume shortly. And this is the drill I use. I actually I don't use a cordless drill, though you can. And this is the end mill with a collar, a stop collar. Oh, this is already preset to the depth of 1 inch, which is half the length of the actual tenon, a loose tenon. So half of 2 is 1. So an inch on either of the frame members should suffice. I'll go ahead and do this now. I'll be turning the vacuum on also. So that's the actual slot. So if I measure this, I have, oops. If I measure this, I got about an inch there. So that should be fine. So I'll go ahead and do the mortise on the end.